Hello, my name is Rafael Barada, and today I will be talking about my and my family's immigration story. I was born in Venezuela, yet both my parents, as seen in this picture, were both born in Cuba. Why is it that two Cubans decided to leave their home country and go to Venezuela, and then leave their country once again and go to the United States? In this video, I will answer those questions. But before we do so, let's first take a look at my family's roots. Both my parents can point their lineage directly to Spain, but on my mother's side, as seen in this picture, we have a much better understanding of her family history. For example, we know that her grandfather, my great-grandfather, Antonio Cayon, was born in Spain in the year 1900. In 1917, he decided to leave Spain and go to Cuba. His motivations were political. Even though Spain was not involved in World War I, there was increasing tensions within Spanish civil society that forced him to move. For example, the Spanish military began to intervene in Spanish politics by forming military juntas to resist reform. On top of that, this angered Spanish socialists, trade unionists, and even anarchists, and by 1917 a general strike was formed. Furthermore, separatist movements in Catalonia and the Basque region exacerbated the situation. All of this led many people to believe that a civil war was soon to come. Therefore, Antonio Cayon and his older brother decided to leave Spain due to the fact that they were both of military age. Once Antonio Cayon arrived in Cuba, he decided to work in sugar mill factories. In fact, the picture being shown now is one of the sugar mills where she worked in. Seeing as the situation in Spain continued to worsen, Antonio Cayon decided to stay in Spain and create a family, of which the picture is being shown. Now let's talk about my father's side of the story. This is him. Even though we do not know how his family got to Cuba, we do know that his family, since arriving in Cuba, had an important role to play in Cuba's revolution and counter-revolutions after 1959. However, the person to play the most important role in Cuba's politics was my father's uncle, Pedro Barata, as seen here as a child on the right next to my grandfather. Pedro Barata, the person who is wearing the white t-shirt, became disillusioned by the situation in Cuba. There was massive levels of inequality and no freedom of speech. Pedro Barata placed the blame on Cuba's right-wing military dictatorship, who was led by Fulgencio Batista. Therefore, Pedro Barata decided to join Fidel Castro's revolutionary movements and assisted them by transporting weapons, ammunition, food, and medication to the rebels. Soon after Castro's successful revolution, Pedro Barata and many former revolutionaries figured out Castro's true intentions. They decided to start a counter-revolutionary movement named the Revolutionary Movement of November 30th. Their goal was to bring down Castro's government. Pedro Barata assisted the new rebel group by providing the same services that he gave to Castro. Unfortunately, on January 20th, 1960, this group was caught and Pedro Barata was sentenced to a 10-year prison sentence as a political prisoner. While in prison, Pedro Barata and his fellow counter-revolutionaries were tortured. Pedro and others led a 13-day hunger strike to bring attention to their plight and to be allowed to see their families without a fence in their way. While these aren't pictures of Pedro, these are pictures of real Cuban political prisoners. After completing his prison sentence, Pedro and his family faced more discrimination. Due to the fact that he was a counter-revolutionary, the Cuban government did not give him work, and when they did, they gave him work they knew he couldn't do. On top of that, his son, who is the second man from the right in this picture, was not allowed to study his desired career. This was the case until 1982 when Pedro, his wife, and his son were accepted as political exiles in Venezuela. Once in Venezuela, Pedro started requesting the rest of his family to come over to Venezuela, as can be seen in this picture, with my uncle to the right, my father, my cousin, my mother, my aunt, my other cousin, and my sister in the bottom. By 1995, we were all in Venezuela, and in the year 1998, I was born. Yet, in this same year, in 1998, Hugo Chavez was elected as president of Venezuela, and as his rhetoric became more and more revolutionary, my parents saw the writing on the wall. They decided to leave it all behind, even though this time they had created a successful business for themselves. Now their goal was to reach the United States, and by 2002, we were all granted temporary visas, and we have since been living in Miami as U.S. citizens. Even though I was born in Venezuela and have a Venezuelan passport, I was only there for the first 4 years of my life, which did not give me the opportunity to grow a Venezuelan identity. And since I moved to Miami, a city with a large Cuban exile community, I was taught Cuban values. I listened and danced to Cuban music, and I ate Cuban food. Yet more than anything, I feel American. This country accepted me with open arms and made me one of her own, and for that, we're eternally grateful. Our family has made this country our home, and we will work hard to ensure that none of us have to feel the pain of leaving our loved ones behind and everything that we worked so hard to attain in our lives.